In October 1948, it began basic training at Lackland for the newly authorized women in the Air Force. And in June 1949, Lackland began the integration of black airmen into regular units with whites. Despite predictions of trouble, these changes were made peacefully. Mr. George Vick recalls what it was like to be stationed at Lackland during that era.
Hi, my name is George Vick, 14267-118. I enlisted into the Army Air Corps in 1947 in Tennessee. When I got here to Lackland, this building here is where I went through basic, and we became the U.S. Air Force. During this time, we were a 13-week basic training period. After about the 4th week, we started getting weekend passes into town every week. The training, like we've got today, is still the same as then. There are a few changes and a few differences. The range, we did that just like you guys do now today. And girls, kind of remember the women, they were not here then. Another big difference that was here at Lackland when I was here is you didn't see the automobiles on the streets like you do today. There were very few of them. We had lots of fun like most of the basics do today. We had a lot of good times. Brackenridge Park downtown for the zoo, the movie theaters downtown. We didn't get much entertainment on base. They didn't have the skating rink or other activities here because we were here for basic training, just like you people are.
Then, in June 1950, North Korean communists invaded South Korea, and the U.S. Air Force was called upon to help drive back the invaders. This had a drastic effect on the training mission at Lackland. The base soon found itself struggling with an unprecedented deluge of recruits and reservists. Human tidal waves of recruits poured in daily. At one point, 60% of the Pullman cars in the United States were tied up around Lackland. On December 28, 1950, 1,348 young men arrived for training. The next day, more than 2,300 arrived. The next day, training was cut from 13 weeks to 2. And those numbers were small compared to the day 2 weeks later when 6,007 recruits arrived on the base. A processing center was set up in what's now the Warhawk Gym. Some 4,000 recruits were processed every 24 hours, but still a backlog developed. It peaked on January 15, 1951, when more than 13,000 recruits awaited processing. Every recruit had to get a physical and shots, especially with the possibility of serving overseas. Clothing issue was a tremendous supply problem, especially for the women in the Air Force. Female recruiting quotas had to be cut, and many recruits had their orders canceled because they simply didn't have uniforms. The logistics effort to feed the 70,000 recruits was mind-boggling. The 25 dining halls stayed open 24 hours a day, serving some 1,600 pounds of potatoes per meal and more than 10,000 gallons of milk every day. 125 gallons of pancake batter for breakfast was an average amount. The one single thing that all recruits and staff remember most vividly was Tent City. Lackland's emergency training capacity was 27,500. When this was exceeded in early July 1950, the only immediate alternative was to start erecting tents. By January 1951, the sprawling Tent City contained more than 4,000 tents. Most were 16 by 32 feet and housed 12 men. Mr. Robert Stalter, now an engineer at Kelly Air Force Base, remembers what it was like.
Well, I'll tell you, they say that you can't go back, but after 30 years, I've come back. And I want to tell you that there's a big change that's gone on in this past 30 years. This field over here, back here, all this you see, this used to be tents. We had tents between tents. We had tents between our barracks. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what it's like to be in a tent. We would get up bright and early in the morning and make our beds after we rolled all the dirt, the dust, and the grass out of it. Then when we have to do our cleanup would imagine it would be raking the grass, cleaning up the dirt, shoveling it outside. Then the rains come. Now, I don't know if you've ever been here in Texas when the rains come in June, July, and August, but when they come, they really pour down. We have to roll down the sides of the tent. The humidity would get so high that you'd be wetter in the tent without the rain than you would be outside in the rain. Some of the other things we had in life was our clothing. We'd have to hang our clothing up inside the tent. We didn't have wall lockers. We had a foot locker, but the foot locker leaked. It was wood, so the dirt and the dust would get into it. Along come the flight sergeant and say, dirty uniform, 5 gigs. So we'd have to work a little extra in the mess hall to clear off the gigs so we could make sure we had our stripe when we graduated. Now you're lucky. You get to do this for 6 weeks. We did it for 13 weeks, and we did it in tents.
Eventually, many tents were improved with wooden floors and attractive landscaping, especially those that were used as orderly rooms, supply rooms, and permanent party housing. In spite of the problems, Lackland continued to accomplish its mission, training. Recruits were put through a vigorous program designed for both physical and mental development. And Lackland launched a full-scale expansion program. Tents came down as more than 165 new dormitories went up. In 1952, the Central Processing Center was built. Nicknamed the Green Monster, it saw more than 2 million recruits get their first haircut, their first uniform, and their first paycheck as they passed through its doors. It stood for 27 years before finally being replaced by the new modern facility in use today. The 6 weeks a new recruit spends in basic training nowadays is different in many ways, reflecting changing priorities within the Air Force. The training is more personal. More time is devoted to human relations, drug abuse education, and fundamentals like customs and courtesies. And the increasing number of female trainees has led to more emphasis on female-oriented subjects. And what are today's trainees like?
Good afternoon. I'm Senior Master Sergeant Barnes. I'm the training superintendent in Basic Training Squadron. I've been in this job for approximately 11 years. I've been asked to explain some of the differences between today's airmen and the airmen of the past. It has been my experience in the 10 years that I've been here that there have been many, many changes in the young airmen and their motivation for joining the Air Force. If I were to go back in time to 26 years ago when I joined, I find that we were more willing to accept orders instinctively without question. I find that the airman of today is a little more discerning and asks many more questions of why. It has become important to us as military training instructors to be able to answer these questions and make this airman a little more informative of its surroundings. In times of peace, there are a little more questioning, There are things that they want to know about themselves, about their service, and about their country. We as military training instructors now are able to answer these questions and answer them to the point that our young airmen are able to exercise a measure of self-discipline without imposed discipline from the military training instructor and the job and on-the-job supervisor. Their concerns are for self-serving reasons, and when I say this, I mean that they come in the service looking for education, looking for a challenge, looking to take their place in society when they're unable to continue their education. I find that this young man is a mirror of our society today. This young lady is a mirror of her background in society today, and they come well prepared to become airmen of the future. I feel that our country and our service is in good hands for the future. I'm confident for them, and I'm confident for the country. Thank you very much.
But some things about the transition from civilian to military life don't change. Military drill will always be with us. And preparing your quarters and personal appearance for inspection. Physical conditioning. The main transition takes place in the new processing center, beginning with the haircut.
Okay. Thank you. Next man. You got any moles on your head? Huh? How long you been signed up? Huh?
6 years.
Now, how long you had to wait before you come in? Where you from? Birmingham. I come from over Tallapoosa, Georgia. Mm-hmm. 1942. How long been since you had a haircut?
About a month.
You know you were going to get your hair cut off before you got here?
Yes, sir.
Didn't bother you, did it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I've seen some of them cry about it, but I got it anyway. Okay. Thank you. Next man.
Next, on to receive uniforms and begin the busiest 6 weeks of a lifetime. It's mind-boggling to think about the clothing issued to 3 million people who have gone through basic training at Lackland. If their average waist size was 32 inches and issuing 2 belts per person, the belts would stretch from Orlando, Florida to Seattle, Washington. If all the trainees stood side by side, they would extend from San Antonio to Nashville, Tennessee. If you laid the trainees head to toe, they would cover a distance of 3,295 miles, or the entire Texas shoreline. If you added up all the weight of the trainees, it would come to 232,000 tons. The 3 million who've had haircuts have left over 94 tons of hair at Lackland. And the number of graduates from basic training would equal the population of Alaska, Delaware, Maine, Vermont, and Montana combined.
I came into the Air Force to really get a sense of direction. I went to half a year of college at Colorado State University, and I guess you could say it really didn't thrill me too much. I was just under general studies because I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
The reasons I came into the Air Force were because I was really 19 going on nowhere. I tried going to college and I couldn't do that, and I've tried working in a lot of different little jobs and I didn't stick to them either. And so I decided I was going to prove something to myself and everybody else and do something that I couldn't quit at. And I knew that when I got into the Air Force that I couldn't quit.
I like it. I think it's a good program. I've developed a lot of self-respect as well as respect for other people.
I learned a lot more things than I ever thought I ever would learn. I've learned self-discipline. I've learned to have respect in myself. And I feel really secure about my future. I feel like I'm going somewhere now.
Basic training was good.
This is really a great country, and I'm proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud to be a member of the United States Air Force.
One of the young men and women who selected the Air Force will become the 3 millionth trainee to graduate from Lackland. But that trainee will by no means be the last. We can only guess at the changes today's graduates will see. We can only imagine the opportunities they'll have. Undoubtedly, today's trainees will eventually serve in specialties that don't yet exist. The opportunities are unlimited. And young men and women will continue to take advantage of those opportunities while making important contributions to the service of our country. The 3 millionth graduate represents a landmark in the history of basic training at Lackland. But that graduate also marks a new beginning. We cannot be sure what lies ahead. But we can be sure that future generations of Air Force men and women will make their first stop here at Lackland for basic training. And these volunteers will continue to make up the best Air Force in the world.